cloud providers. That's about the cloud services. Okay, and now let's and then and I hope you guys mentioned like you already have an account, you already have an signed up, and you got everything to good to go. Okay, now so since we have everyone having an account, so let's get started. I already have an account, so I have logged into my AWS account. Uh, okay, this is one of the servers which I was been working, and these are the instances which I do have of all these load balancers, IPs, and everything. So now let's switch back to the North Virginia region here. Okay, what does it mean? Is basically um, this is AWS EC2. I mean, this is AWS console, management console. Under the management console, we do have categorization of different services related to the analytics, computing, cost management, containers, database, lot of other categorizations are present. Mostly every organization will be using at least a compute, database, storage, and what else? Devops related stuff. So these are the services they would be using. And we, as a part of our learning, we are being focused on the EC2 especially. And this is an EC2 service dashboard. EC2 is mainly for compute purposes, which is like in your local VM, I mean, in your local laptop, you are creating virtual machines by using a virtual box, or virtual machines using VMware, right? Similarly, we will also create a virtual machines, or sometimes we'll call it as a instances, sometimes we'll call it as a servers, sometimes we'll call it as a virtual machines. These are the terminologies that we do use in AWS, and mainly uh, when we in AWS, we will call it as a instances. Okay. So currently, there is no instances which is running, but there is a one instance which is already created, but what was not running here. Okay, and in this particular dashboard, we'll get to know how many dedicated hosts, load balancers, security groups, volumes, auto scaling groups, elastic IPs. Uh, Heap aids, snapshots, placement groups, all the information we'll be getting under the EC2 dashboard here. I'll tell you what does that each means. Mainly, you would be working with instances, load balancers, security groups, volumes, elastic IPs, and obviously you would be using one by one another, but not in everything at once like that. So, okay. So let's get started here. So let's understand of all this just in a moment. Okay. So instances which is currently running, I don't have running instances here, and these are the dedicated host means. See, so basically there are instance types we do have. Let me tell you in this part. So what does it mean is these are the different sizes of the instances, meaning someone will have a 4 GB 4 CPUs RAM, I mean 4 GB of RAM and 4 CPUs and 500 GB hard disk, right? Some people will have 8 GB RAM, 4 CPUs, and 250 GB hard disk, something like, I mean SSD hard disk, right? So similarly here also these are the instance types: T1 micro, T2 nano, T2 micro, T2 small, T2 medium, large, X large, 2X large, nano. So these are the some of the instance types that we would be requiring. Okay. What does it mean is I'll tell you. We'll talk about in a moment of that, where I'll show you the context, I'll tell you the context, and then we will understand what does it of the instance types here. And when do you choose, what kind of instance that you do choose, that you'll also get to understand here. Okay, here, and the next one is instances, load balancers. Load balancer is one of platform as a service in EC2, and of course, EC2 is also platform as a, infrastructure as a service. So what you do is you generally point out multiple servers into load balancer and then distribute the load between the different servers. Especially this will be used to distribute the request coming to the your server. Meaning, for example, if you install Apache server or WebLogic or Nginx, or Nginx works like a load balancer and as well as a proxy server also. We won't consider that as a native web application server. So there are a lot of web servers, right? Apache, Jetty, JBoss, Tomcat. These are all the web servers, right? So each web server has a capacity of serving a request. For example, if you take Apache, it can handle 2,200 requests per minute. Okay, so if it is beyond that limit, right, the web server can't able to handle those requests. So meaning you have to scale your web application using by applying a load balancer concept and your architectural pattern. Okay, so that is the place where we do use a load balancer. We will also show you and then we will also apply. What we do is we'll create a 3 instances, and 3 instances will attach to the load balancer by creating a load balancer, and then we will see how it has been distributing the request from the between the 3 servers. Okay, and major important thing is a security group. Security group is basically, right, where you will be defining a firewall kind of thing. I mean, if you already know about the firewall, I just mentioned it. So it acts like a firewall, but to not the entire AWS account, but to only this particular resources. For example, if I create any security group will have an inbound and outbound rules. What does it mean is inbound rules means so you have to accept a request. For example, your application is running on 9,000 port. And if someone want to accept or someone want to accept your, someone want to access your 9,000 port web application, web application which is running on 9,000 port, meaning they'll send a request, meaning the request is coming to your server. So that is an inbound request. So you have to accept saying that, okay, whatever the request coming to 9,000 port, please allow that. So in that particular case, what you do is you will edit an inbound rule saying that, hey, please allow my inbound rule of 9,000 port, and then of you can even specify the specific address also, or you can specify a specific IP address range also. You can specify IPv6 also. We'll get to know. I'll show you those are all stuff. I'm just clicking on here. So see this, you have to mention your port number, something like this, and then this is where you have to mention the specific IP address. Okay, or specific IP address or specific AWS services itself, right? So there are a lot of other things you would be providing here. This is like a whitelisting. Whitelisting, sometimes we'll call this as a security groups, also called as a whitelisting. The process we do is called as a whitelisting. Whitelisting means you are filtering out the particular request. Okay, even if someone mentioned you, whitelisting means this is just they would be filtering to accept the request. Okay, and I'll talk about that as well, because we need to enable a couple of ports in that particular security groups also. Okay, now where are we? Okay, next one is a volumes. Of course, whenever you create a virtual box, you need to attach a volume. By default, when you create a virtual box, it will be come up with the 8 GB of volume, which is a SSD type. If you want, when we are working, 8 GB won't be enough at all. So you have to create a new volume and attach that volume to the instance and then mount it. There is a separate process. Basically, uh, attaching a hard disk or virtual hard disk to your EC2 instance. So the volumes here. Okay. So you can create a volumes with the size that you want. but this is a cost also here. Okay, so this is how much thing you want, which is SSD, GP2, GP3, IO, IO2. So we need to select which kind of volume that we want. Why we need to select is because the volumes are being meant for operational purpose, meant for IO reads, meant for storage purpose. So based on our requirement, we need to select which one is the thing. Most of the time we would be using SSD of general purpose, because we are just attaching the volume to storage purpose. But if you have something like a read write operation, for example, you are developing an application related to the video streaming or gaming, so it required a lot of input and output streams. I mean, IOP reads and writes it required. So general purpose won't be enough. You have to go with the IOPS SSD, which is very optimized for read and writes of, especially in the hard disk. So based on the requirement, you have to select which kind of SSD or volume that you need to. Okay, so okay, let's talk after that. Okay, I mean, we'll detailedly talk when we want. Okay, so the next one is auto scaling group. Auto scaling group means, what does it mean is, first you do create a group for auto scaling. Auto scale is nothing but increasing the resources. Okay, well, let me tell you an example. You create a group of, for example, two instances that you have created, and the two instances you created as a group, and for example, if the request or if the CPU utilization of those two CPUs has increased till 90%, it should automatically spin up another instance. So it has to auto scale to from 2 to 3 instances. So that's how you do create, which is very important concept. Okay, we will see that as well. Okay, next one is elastic IPs. Elastic IPs means there is a behavior like whenever you create an instance, there is a one public DNS IP will be allocated. Through that public DNS IP only, you would be accessing your instances from our external world. So whenever you restart the EC2 instance, what will happen is it will change the IP address, meaning every restart of EC2 instance, you will get a new public IP address. Okay, so to avoid that, you require some kind of a static IP address, meaning static means it won't change. Once you created, how many times that you restart, you still get the same IP address, but it will be charged for you. So you would be getting those IP address. Okay, I mean, that is the main why. Because why do we need a IP addresses? Sometimes, right, once we deployed our application, if we shared the IP address to someone, if by mistakenly or because of some requirement, some patches, if we restart our IP server, the IP address will get changed again. It has to change. I mean, you have to pass all the information to everyone, whoever you shared. So there are a lot of scenarios where we should be using elastic IPs. Okay, but it is a cost one also. Okay, and placement groups also we will be using under the load balancer concept. We don't require. And the snapshots is nothing but a backup of your existing volumes. So what you do is you will create a snapshot volumes. I mean, snapshots of a volumes or images, snapshots as a volumes. I mean, you would be creating a snapshots of a volumes, snapshots of instances. So you would be creating those things, especially for the backups. Every company will be using a snapshots option. Why? Because every day they do take a backup of it. Okay, so what is the purpose of the backup of, again? For example, you are creating some instance. If that instance is suddenly has corrupted, or someone has done something wrong in the access of that EC2 instance, or that website got corrupted, or someone is hacked, so someone we are not able to access it at all. So what you can do is you can dismantle the existing instance which we were having a problem. You go to the snapshot which was taken yesterday and then restore it to the previous state, which means instance. So we will get the previous data, previous state of instance only. So that's why on this is the savior for most of the times if when we take the backups. Okay. Some people would be writing an automation script to take the backups of, to take the snapshots of the previous day and then use it. So some people will manually create a snapshot. Some people will manually create whenever they want instead of on daily basis. Okay, so just this is a small information that's just you need to know. And now let's do the practical part of it. Let's create an instances. Okay, so what we do is I'll be creating a launch instance. Here, a couple of things here. There is a template, and you can directly click. I mean, template. If you use a template, right, there are pre-filled form, and then you just change whatever you want. That's it. We won't use it because we want to understand how many phases it involved and a lot of stuff here. Okay. So this is the once you click on a launch instance, right? It will ask you the name of all the web server. Okay, my web server one. This is my one. I mean my server name and application and OS images here. So what does it mean is what kind of a OS that you want to create? I want to create Ubuntu or Red Hat or AWS or Amazon Linux or SUSE or Debian based. So we can select multiple, multiple OSs, which in AWS terminology, we'll call it as a AMIs. AMIs means Amazon Mission Images. Each mission image have a unique ID here. For example, if I select Amazon Linux, so it is showing you the AMI ID is this, and the root device is EBS type, and virtualization is this one. And one more thing is, it will tell you whether this particular OS is a free tier eligible or not. Okay, if it is not free tier eligible, we will be getting a bill for every hour. For example, if I select this one, deep learning AMI, I mean, this is another AMI. Okay. What does it do is, it is one of the artificial intelligence related capabilities it has, especially the GPU, which is meant for processing a lot of things. Okay. So if I select this AMI, and it will be having some kind of a charges for us. I don't want this. So what I do is generally directly, right? I'll take the Ubuntu, okay, here itself. So this is eligible for and the discussion about this Amazon Server 2022-04. It is a Ubuntu version, and the Jammy is the edition name, and it is an architecture type of 64 only, and this is a AM. Okay, this is a provider. I mean, a free tier eligible. If I want a Red Hat, right, I can select this. Even still, it is also free tier eligible. Okay, so like this, you can select these AMIs. You can select these AMIs, and you can create own AMI and then upload it to here. What does it mean is, for example, I have a virtual box in my local box, in local machine. What I can do is I can convert that my virtual box to Amazon Mission Linux by using some of the tools provided by the AWS, and then upload that into the AWS marketplace, and then use that our virtual box as a virtual box in a EC2 instance. So this way you can share. I mean, you can I mean, you would be getting another owned by me. Okay. So now what is happening? It is very slow. I don't know why. Okay, but I have selected Ubuntu as my server, my virtual box. I mean, which I have selected a AMI, and the instance which I have selected is a T2 micro. What does it mean is basically there are families, basically T2, T1, T3, C4. These are the families. Under that, if I take a T2 micro, there are questions like, I mean, there are configurations like one CPU and 1 GB of RAM, which has been attached here. for the T2 micro. Okay, and compare instance types. If you just click on here, right, you will get to know what are the things for example, T1 micro. Let me tell you. Okay. So if you see here, they have created a instance types based on the categorization, meaning these instance types, if you want an instance for the general purpose means for small application development, you can go with the general purpose. Under the general purpose, you would be getting a these many things: T2, T2 family, T3 family, T4G family, M4G family, M5, M5 Gen, M5, M6. These are the types of the family. If you talk about here, right, this is basically up to, I mean, this will give you T2 nano, T2 small, T2 medium, T2 large, T2 X large, T2 2X large. If you take this contains, if your type is contains, I mean, if you choose the T2.2X large, you would be getting 8 CPUs and 81 rupees. I mean, 81 credits. I mean, basically the charges they would be applying it, and it is a 32 GB RAM, and the storage it will use EBS only, that but not the SSD purpose. I mean, I think you might have heard about we some of our laptops will have SSD, right? So earlier we'll do have a HDD, which is a hard disk, right? So EBS is a type of volume like a HDD, but HDD is in a physical laptop, but EBS is the elastic block volumes. So this is another a volume type in the cloud services. Okay, nothing is difference with the HDD, only the terminology change. Okay, so if you choose the T2 micro, it will be assigned with the one CPU and 6 credits will be used. You can forget about this, we don't require, because this is the usage that we don't use it now. Okay, this is just for the calculation purpose they would be using. What you need to take is how many CPUs, how much RAM it is using, what kind of a storage it is being attached. Okay, and you also need to think about the moderate, meaning network and performance also here. There are two categories: network related and performance related. We'll see that. Okay, now if you are working in a artificial intelligence related applications or ML or deep learning purpose, right, what you do is you would be using compute optimized, because you required a lot of computation powers in order to run any model for that. So you would be opting compute, I mean, optimized purpose. So those are especially starting with the C4, not from T2 or something. It will have up to 2.9 gigahertz processors and two CPUs, 3.7 GB of RAM, and it is having a storage of EBS only. There is no, and the network performance will be moderate. That is the, if you choose this. If you choose C4 2X large, right, 8 CPUs and 15 GB of RAM, again it is the EBS only. So like this, you would be finding a lot of different categorization: memory optimized or accelerated computing, especially the running a different algorithms. If you want long running algorithms, you would be using it. Storage based one. So if we choose the storage based one, these will be focused on the instead of RAM, they will be focusing on the hard disk, which they would be attaching it here. And of course, there is a CPU and memory also, but the priority will be on the hard disk, because this is a storage optimized. If you choose this, they will be focusing on the CPU and RAM rather than the storage purpose. So these many are the, you have to, I mean, these many are the instance types that you would be using it here. Okay, so So you have to, where is this? Yeah, you have to select which kind of instance type that you want to use. As a free tier eligible, we are being T2 micro. Okay, we don't use it because it is fine, 1 GB RAM and 1 CPU. Now I'm selecting this. Okay, where is this? And T2 micro as a free tier eligible. Okay, and key pair here. What does it mean? Key pair here is that you have to create a one key pair which you are going to use that for accessing this mission. Okay, now let me create a key pair here. Okay, what I do is, okay, there is a one key pair is going to generate on this one by using this name of this RAC type in the PEM format. Okay, so these are the two file format that we would be getting. If you, where do we use this? For example, how do we log into the remote mission? If you remember, we would be using a putty. By after opening a putty, what we done is we have used a username and password to log into the remote mission, right? In AWS, we can't able to do that. You have to do with the some of the key pair only. Okay, that key pair will be either PEM file or PPK file. If you are using a putty, right, you can use the PPK file. If you are using a native SSH command, you would be using a PEM file only. So one more thing is, if you download the PEM file, you can use for open SSH command, or you can convert the PEM file to PPK file, which you can directly use the putty also. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to the select the PEM file and then create a, so automatically I got downloaded. If you lose this PEM file, you are done, meaning you can't able to access your mission at all. If you lose this PEM file, this is like a password file. If you forget your password, you can't able to log in, right? So similar way, if you forget this PEM file which you are going to access, right, I mean, you can't able to access it again. You have to go with the AWS support team and they will reply based on the account type that you have chosen, and ultimately they would try to give an access for that. Okay, but they won't give you the same PEM file. What they ask you to is they ask you to reinstall or reinstall the entire SSH module in that particular instance. So it is a big process. So as much as possible, you have to be careful while sharing this PEM file with everyone, or you have to be careful while dealing with this. And at the same, for example, if I have the PEM file of your mission, I can able to access it. Okay, so yeah, this is the key pair part of it. And the next one is a network related. So while creating a network related, so it will tell you, it will by default, it will take you the VPC as whatever it has been there. And the subnet is also whatever it is there, which has been, whenever you create a VPC, I mean, whenever you create an account, there will be a default VPC. VPC is nothing but a virtual private network, which will be act like a networking for your virtual servers. For example, if you go to any of the company, right, what do they have? They have a network server, and the network server, they will be connected with one of the network router. From the network router, we will be connecting a switches. From the switches, we will get a connections, I mean wired LAN connection to our servers or our laptops or computers, right? Similarly, VPCs will be applying the same, but in the virtual format. Okay, whenever you create an account in AWS, by default there will be a default VPC. Under the default VPC, there will be a subnets. One subnet that could be a public subnet. We will learn when we are learning about the VPC. But just for now, the network in the network section of VPC, we would be using a default VPC, and there is no subnet assigned for this. Okay, and here even security groups also will be coming under here. Okay, So what does it mean is, I don't want to create, okay, let's not use an existing one, because let's create a new one. Security group means you are going to write some kind of a rules. That rules will allow you some traffic from an external world. The first rule it is suggesting is, you want to allow the SSH traffic from anywhere? Yes. Otherwise, if I select my IP address, if I'm trying to log into the putty or SSH command, it will accept the connection request from this IP address. If I put anywhere, which means 000, if you have an access, you can from wherever you are, you can able to access from whatever the network that you do, because I'm accepting anyone. So if I specify only my IP address, it will accept from my IP address only. And if I give a custom, I need to mention a list of IP addresses or list of IP ranges which I need to mention. So it will accept the connection request from the listed IP address or listed IP ranges here. So currently what I'm going to do is anywhere. And another thing is, do you want any other HTTPS traffic or HTTP traffic? Currently, I don't want. Only my security group should have only one inbound rule. That inbound rule should tell us accept all SSH requests from anywhere. This is my currently security group which I do have. Okay. And the next one is configuring the storage. Okay. Under the storage, I required a 30 GB of, okay, what it is saying, 30 GB of RAM I want, and which is a type of a EBS, not a SSD here. Okay, meaning SSD you might have that will have a solid state drive which will help us to read write very fastly, right? So EBS is a normal, somewhat below of that. Okay, so this is the 30 GB I want, and I don't want delete this volume whenever I deleted the instance. I disable that part, and I don't want any encryption also. It's fine if I was. So like this, I have attached my EBS volume. And do I require to provide any advanced details? You don't need of all this, because these are the some of the monitoring related that we will be dealing when we launch the new instance here. Okay, so totally, if you understand me, there are multiple phases here. Okay, the first one is selecting the application. I mean, selecting the AMIs that we want, which is nothing but selecting the OSs. And the next one is selecting the instance types. Third one is how do you authenticate using a key pair. Yes, this is only the option AWS is providing. Some of the AWS, no, sorry, some of the other cloud service providers, along with the key pair, they would also suggest you to create a username and password. Especially Linode is another cloud server, I mean cloud vendor. They are providing a along with the key pair and along with the username also. They are providing two options here. Okay, now AWS is only providing one. And the next thing is network setting, where we would be selecting which VPC that we want and which subnet and what are the security groups that you want. Everything you would be configured under the network settings. And the next one is storage purpose. And what is our storage volume? I mean, volume configuration. Is it a one volume or how many volumes? If the volume, what type it is, a EBS or SSD, and how much size it is, and which version of it, where it will be attached, and how much read IOPS, which means input output operations. So you would be finding everything under the volumes you would be configuring. And the last one is advanced settings, where we would be using for the monitoring our instance. If you see here, there are something called request spot instances. If you remember, spot instance means, what does it means? Okay, there are instance types. Okay, let me tell you, there is nothing like instance. This is not, I'm not talking about. Generally, instance types means this is a family type of instance, we'll call it as, like T2 micro or C4 or X large. So memory optimized, computer optimized. or storage optimized. These are the family types of instances. Okay. Now there are some instances called reserved instance, spot instance, on-demand instances. There are three types here. What does it mean is, one minute, guys. Okay, let me do this. There are, which I mentioned you right here. So there are something called reserved instances, uh, on-demand instance, spot instances. So these are the three types of instances that we would be using. So what are, I mean, meaning reserved instances means, for example, yesterday, if you remembered, we were talking about the AWS organizations. There is a one cloud organizations. They will be creating organization accounts. Under their account, they'll give a 20 or 30 or 10% of discount, right? So the similar way they would be, what they do is they would be taking an agreement or 5 years, long term. Okay. They will be reserved their instance purposes. I mean, their instance based on their configurations for long term. So for example, for 5 years per hour, they are charging almost $0.02. Okay, this is the charge. There is a something called for the long-term purposes. For on-demand purposes, what they would be using is, I mean, for on-demand means whenever you want. The best example is we are just creating this account, right? Hey guys, sorry, I thought, do you able to see my notepad?
No, we can't.
No, Narendra.
Okay, right. Okay, let me put it this way. I was writing in a notepad actually. Okay, these are the things which I've just written here. Okay, reserved instances, on-demand instance, and spot instances. The one that we are just creating it, right? That is a on-demand instance, meaning I just launched the EC2 instance and then configure everything, right? Whenever you want, you just create. That is called on-demand. You just come and then asking on demandly, like, and then creating it, meaning without failing your service request, it is getting created. That is called on-demand request. This will charge $0.7 per hour. Okay. Spot instances means what will happen is there is a something called there are multiple data centers. If you remember, there are multiple regions under the data centers. Okay, what will happen is in this particular region they have almost 5 compute powers. Or example, 2000 GB of RAM of compute power is in wastage. Not like wastage, it is being not utilized, it is underutilized. So even though it is underutilized for this region, for under this data center, they need to be wastage, right? I mean, they won't get the money even if it is unutilized. What they do is, if you opt these spot instances, What does it do is it will AWS algorithm will find wherever the underutilized compute power, they will create a compute power under this particular region. So this way they would be utilizing. At the same time, they will be charging a less amount when compared with the on-demand service. So meaning it is a without without restrictions. It can create any of the regions in AWS because you choose the spot instances where automatically AWS will choose wherever the less utilization of the compute power, it will allocate your instance in under that particular region. So this way they will charge you very less amount of it when compared with the on-demand services. On-demand is like whatever you ask, it will create it. For example, I want this EC2 instance only on this region of this particular configuration only. Don't don't it's like don't give me all the things whatever I have, whatever I ask for. So it's like you are demanding instantly, so that's why they are charging you. Okay, but in case of reserved instances, they will be charging very less because it is a long term and it won't be useful. It will be, even if it is utilized by you or not utilized, they won't touch you. They will allocate a five, they allocated those many powers when there's many configuration of compute nodes to you for the long term. Okay, they don't care about it. Okay, so these are the types that instance types we will be getting it here. Okay, and why I have mentioned here, yeah, this is the one. There is an option called request a spot instance. Under the request spot instance, they are going to ask you which one I can use it. Should I use any of the things or not? Something like you can get all the stuff here, but I don't want it request a spot instances now. I'm just selecting here, and under the advanced details, you can select all this stuff here. Okay, and these are the see. And one more thing is I'm going to create three instances. If you want to create a similarly three instances, this is one. Okay, and this is just a general. This is the confirmation. I hope you can see my browser, right? Not from the notepad. Can someone please confirm? Are you seeing browser or notepad?
Browser.
Browser Navinder.
Right. Okay, correct. So this is the overview of launching an instance. If you choose a launch an instance from a template, it will autofill. It will just ask you only few details. Okay, so you just don't need everything. Okay, okay. Here they are saying in your first year includes 750 hours of T2 micro region of this of 30 GB, which contains 2 million IOs and 1 GB of snapshots. I'm fine with that, just ignore it. Okay, so you can just review whatever you have just configured and then launch an instance here. One more thing is, if someone asks you in the interview, like what exactly the EC2, what are the steps, what is the procedure to launch an EC2 instance, you have to explain all these steps. So this contains 7 phases. One is choosing an application OSS, which is nothing but AMIs. And the next one is instance types and families. And the third one is a key pair authentication method, network settings, which contains a VPCs and security groups. And the next one is the storage, where we will be selecting or configuring the volumes. And third one is last one is advanced details, which contains a monitoring this EC2 instances. So you have to explain all these phases. If someone asks you in an interview, what are the steps, what is the procedure to launch an EC2 instance? Okay, the UI will be keep on changing. Sometimes they have given this like this expandable options, but in case of some other thing. Hey guys, just give me 1 minute. I'm just Okay, guys, back. Any questions, guys, before launching this incident? I want a confirmation from everyone. Guys, are you there? I want a confirmation from everyone. Any questions on this? Okay. Okay, right. Thank you, Naveen. Thank you all. Sign up. Okay, good. Okay, thing is, uh, earlier we won't be getting this information. If you see our review commands, what does it mean is whatever the configuration that we have done, right? Everything was in the JSON format where we do use for the REST APIs. Okay. Um, these are the some of the internal information you can use it. Just remember the same format we would be using under that while launching the uh, EC2 instance with the Terraform, meaning we would be configuring or we would be using this JSON format where we do use to launch a EC2 instance from a Terraform script. Okay, that is the place where we do require this kind of a schema. This is called a schema, which will tell what exactly the configuration of the EC2 instance. We don't require it right now. So I'm just going to launch of a 3 instance because I have given here. Okay, and we can see the progress, how it is going. It is just creating all the requests and everything. Looks like it is done. These are the instances. Let's see here under the instances. These are the my web server 1, web server 1. Let me put it this 2. And let me put it 3 here. 3 here. So this is the one. Okay, it is came into the running state. This is also running state, and now this is a pending. All G2 micro here, and no alarms configured because we did not configure any settings. What kind of alarm means if the instance goes down, or if something goes down, or if any particular web server or service got stopped here, so you would be getting all the information. Okay, these are the public IP addresses for these missions. This is where you can access your web application or your server through this public IP address. This is a DNS name which is attached here. And we did not opted any static IP, which means any fixed IP. That's why it didn't show anything. And no thing is also here. Monitoring we have disabled. That's why, I mean, we did not configure, everything was disabled here. And the key name is this one. Okay, and which is a type of Linux here. Now let's understand the same. Let's select one thing and then we'll understand what is happening here. Same information here. So instance ID is this. Instance ID is this. Instance ID is this, and instance name is this. This is a public IP address. This is a private IP address, meaning whenever you create a EC2 instance, if you remembered, we have seen something like a network interfaces. Network interfaces can be public public interface, and then public network interface and private network interface. I told you there is a something called Bastion host or jump host, where it will have a multiple network interfaces. For example, in company organizations, right? Everything what they do is having is, if you want to access any of their web application server or database server, right? First, you have to access the jump server. From the jump server, you have to go to the respective. You can't able to access other things because that particular jump server is will have a multiple network interfaces. Those multiple network interfaces will be associated with the some of the private network which has been isolated, some of them connected with the private public network interfaces from your internet. So that is the main purpose. So similarly, whenever you create a public will be able to contact your service, I mean server, using this public IP address, which is a public network interface. There is a some other thing called private network interface. Why? This is a internally used by the AWS, and of course we can also use internally between a within VPC, whatever we created here. Okay, and this is the IP address. If you click on here, right, you would be getting information. I mean, you would be getting your server able to access from this public DNS IP or through IP. Since we did not install any of the server in our EC2, we did not getting any of the web application page. And one more thing is we did not allow any of the security groups. Okay, so that's why we are not getting anything at all. Let's talk about what you need to care is this is your public IP address, this one, and this is the same here. Okay, and T2 micro, and this is a VPC ID. This is a subnet that has been created, and this is the family instance type. Ubuntu it is, AMID monitoring is disabled, termination is disabled, AMI, everything. What you just need to care about is the public IP address, and it will be get changed on every restart. Okay, you just need to remember. And now let's go to the security part now. There is no inbound and outbound rows here. Okay, and the networking, the same network information like public, private information and everything. And the status that we have attached 30 GB of volume to this, and you can ignore remaining part. You would be coming only when you require. Now what I do is, now let me log into this mission now. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is, so I have downloaded this Devops learning missions. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to use a PowerShell to log into the remote mission. Okay. Here a lot of other stuffs here. So let me do one thing here. What I do is just give me a minute, guys. Um, so, 1 minute. And I'm gonna copy this. This you can use a public IPv4 DNS or public IP address. I'm using a DNS name here. Uh, public DNS. Yeah. So SSH under the downloads -v. Okay, this is the one. And by default, username is this, and this is the IP address. So yes. Yeah. Here is I have logged in here. Okay. So I have logged into this instance. Do you able to see my screen, guys? I logged into the remote mission. Yes, are you able to see this?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Yes, Naveen. The key pair is same for all the instances, right? By using a same key pair, we'll use this. Okay. Generally, we would be using a different keys based on the servers. For example, in an organizations, right, we would be creating a group of application servers, group of database servers. For all the group of similar type servers, we'll have a similar key. Okay, it's up to use, but with the best practices, even it will be, of course, if you start creating a multiple key pairs for the huge systems, you will be ending up with a lot of keys and pairs. So that's why they'll be creating a they will be using a similar key pair only for based on groups only. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll install the Apache web server. Simply you can use install Apache server something. So get install Apache 2. Yes. Yes. What does it happen? Okay, there is something which I've done wrongly. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first update, then I'll use it. So that we get update is going to update of all this stuff. Okay, so now I'll install the Apache 2 here. Let's see. Okay. Now let's check the commands which we would be using for checking the Apache systemctl status. The service is Apache. It is actively running, and let's check what is the port number. By default, Apache will be running on port number 80. Then netstart is not default installed. Okay, sudo apt install. Okay, that's fine. Huh? Okay. Okay, you should be using a root for this. Okay, there is a one thing is running. Huh? 1 minute. Yes. So let's hey guys, just give me 2 minutes. Okay, guys, back. So generally, what is this? Okay, Apache is running on the port number 80. Now let's try to access the web page of this. How do we access? Through the IP address of this guy. The IP address is, now let's go back to our web servers. This is IP address, port number 80. It's not able to access. you would be getting something like this if you type this, because it didn't access. I mean, we are not able to see because we have blocked here, meaning our security group is not allowing any of the inbound rules. So what you need to do is you select your instance under the security, under the select security group here. Under the security group, you just add edit inbound rules and add a rule. Under the add a rule custom TCP, which is a 80. You can use the HTTP also here. By default 80, and the custom is everyone, whoever is accessing. Just give a Apache server access and then save the rules. Now let's try to hit the same thing here. Is it able to access? Yeah, see, it's back, because we just need to add by default, even if you don't provide 80 port, it will be redirect to 80 port. But if it is another ports like 8080 or 9000, 910, you have to specify the port. When you just type the IP address, by default it will redirect to the 80 port service. Okay. Okay, this is what. And now what I do is, yeah, this is it, guys. Basically what I want is I will edit the some more things also here, like I'll just add my content here so we can get the information, everything here. So this is a big thing. We don't go depth of Apache server, because this is where we will be configuring the virtual sites if we want to enable any of the websites. So now what is an idea is, now by using these three servers, what I do is I'll create a target group. I mean, basically we will learn other two also. Load balancer and target groups will be doing it. Yeah, okay. And at the same time, we will also use the volumes for tomorrow. And tomorrow we will be continuing, and we will complete the load balancer and target groups by using these three servers. And next we will be coming with the IAM and VPC. Okay. Yeah. Any questions, guys, so far? So I'm stopping it here since we have configured one Apache web server. What I've done is just I'll change this page with just my name or only some message. So what we do is we'll configure the similar things in the other two servers, and then we'll just display server 1, server 2, server 3, and then we will use for the load balancer purpose. Any questions, guys? I want a confirmation from everyone. Okay, clear. Thank you. Thank you, Navin. Yeah, okay, let's meet tomorrow then at 7:30. Okay, guys.